Dog, dog. We have a lot to talk about in this chapter, but really quick, if you guys have been liking, these reviews and recaps, please throw me a like or a subscribe or a share, and like feel free to check out like some of the other reviews that I've done. I could talk about One Piece all day, man, and we, like I said, we have a lot to talk about here, so let's jump right into it real quick before we get into that chapter. We can at least see now that the Yamato story is officially done, and we now get artist requests for Oda. So like this one is just Luffy playing around with Japanese macaques. I generally don't know how to pronounce that, but yeah, I'll definitely have to just go back and reread through the Yamato story because there's just so much in there, and there's just so much happening in the main story right now that, yeah, that is definitely just an afterthought at the moment. So we start out the chapter. We see, Emu coming out of like Saturn's back. It seems like I originally thought like Saturn's head or something had morphed into Emu or something, like based on what we saw in the last chapter, but we could see, Saturn's head fully intact, but Emu is just like oozing out of him. That's like the best way I can describe what's happening there. And it's unfortunate too because, like aside from the fact that you have like Marines there under a certain rank that isn't even supposed to see, Saint Saturn in this form, you now just have a bunch of regular regulars just now looking at Emu. So what does Emu do? He, in classic Emu fashion, just kills everybody around him. And I can't wait to see like what the anime does with like that little moment where the tendrils are like the little like design on the tendrils of Saint Saturn. They come apart and act as like extra tendrils just from Emu's ability, even though that's not nearly the most like interesting thing that they're gonna animate in this chapter. But before we get to that, Emu laying waste to both Marines and pirates alike. And like you could see like the Marines are like shitting themselves right now. Like, look at this guy right here. He just straight up has like you could tell that he's like quaking right now. He has no clue what's happening. And that's probably not even with like just the insane conquerors hockey that's like happening. That's just him being scared shitless right now. But yeah, like the Marines, like they know that like, okay, this is like a lost cause now. We have fucking gods and monsters out here. We need to get the fuck out of here. And we see, like Roger, he clearly wants to go towards the fight, but he sees like his men around him are getting, either intimidated or just like being taken aback by what they describe as like oddly compelling pain, which it'll be interesting to see what that is fully translated. It seems like they're being like compelled or like hypnotized almost by something, which like I can also maybe assume that that's like from coming from Emu or Saturn. It like if it was just like Conqueror's hockey, it would probably just have knocked them out. But I'm thinking it's something else besides that. But yeah, we see Roger telling his men to get back. I'll handle this. Meanwhile, Garp is also just trying to make sense of what the fuck is happening right now. And it's interesting to see now that Garp is slowly beating the oppression allegations more and more because like in this like chapter we know like this is the first time Garp is even seeing any of the Gorosei. We know that from what Rox has described, like he hates the top brass, so like he has no problem with just being like, "Oh, damn, that's what they look like, disgusting." And like even like the Marines around him, just like, "Bro, keep it down." But like it's fun to see Garp just like not even afraid. Like, yeah, what are they gonna do to me? But yeah, so Garp didn't know about, the native like cleansing festival, and he didn't know Gorosei looked like that. So it's like slowly looking more and more in Garp's favor. But we have to like the real test is going to see like after God Valley, why did Garp stay with the Marines? Which we get a little bit of an inclination as to why, which we'll discuss a little bit later. But first, we get a fucking hilarious little interaction with Rox and Emu. Rox calling him the Rat King, which, dog, that's just like the disrespect from Rox. I love it so much. Hey, if it isn't the Rat King, come to kill me in person, huh? And I'm wondering if like Rat King could all like be potentially a reference to like when rats get their like tails tangled up, like, Emu and Saturn being fused like that. But he could just also be calling him just like a bitch. Like, oh, if it isn't the little bitch king, And right afterwards, and in response, Emu drops something that's like equally as fun. He mistakes rocks for Davy Jones. This is kind of like the second time we've seen Emu mistake people from the past like as people from the present. Like he obviously didn't know that Luffy and Joy Boy's hockey at the time were not like coming from the same source, but because Luffy was there and Joy Boy's hockey was also emanating from there, he attributed that to Luffy. And I'm assuming just like off feats alone, Emu is like mistaking Rocks for Davy Jones because like he knows at least that Rocks is a worshiper of Davy Jones, but just like the amount of just like damage Rocks has done, and like now the fact that the reveal of him being a Davy Clan member, Emu can now at least put together that, oh, maybe this guy has something to do with Davy Jones if he's not Davy Jones himself. To which, Rocks is like, nope, never even met him. But in another interesting like turn of the conversation, Rox mentions that he has a promise that needs to be kept. I'm assuming that's either a promise to the Davy Jones or a promise that's been carried down by like the Davy clan, aka like an inherited will sort of thing. And Emu's like, yeah, it's for that reason that we gotta like wipe you from history. And then we see a little bit of a clash start between Emu and Rox, and Emu drops a line saying that Moo's world is incomplete. So Rox is meaning more in just like a literal sense, like, hey, I know you're supposed to represent the world, but this world ain't yours to rule. But with Emu, like the line, like the world remains incomplete, like it just makes me wonder, just like how, like what has been Emu's endgame this whole time? Like obviously now he's starting to use like the Mother Flame, and now he's deploying the God's Knights. But like even back then, he still had like grand plans to like complete the world or whatever. But then we cut away from that. We see like the Marines just like seeing Rocks go after Saturn. The Marines still not putting it together. That's Emo. They're just thinking, oh, I guess that's what Saturn looks like, and they're just wondering like, oh, should we provide some backup? And Garp's like, you damn right we should provide some backup. But in true Garp fashion, he does not mean provide Saturn backup. And you could see on the smile on his face that little like evil grin. He's like, oh yeah, this is my chance to finally beat some like beat the shit out of these fucking celestial dragons. And then we cut to some more chaos happening across the island. The pirates and the Marines, they're, battling it out. The pirates trying to get their treasure, trying to escape, while the Marines trying to stop them. Meanwhile, everybody is at the mercy of just like the powerful conquerors hockey being just unleashed by all the top fighters just going at each other. And what's really fun is John in this situation, he takes advantage of it. He uses his magnet power, which we now confirmed is the magnet power, and he starts just sucking all of the metal around the area in, which unfortunately also includes Dragon's pistol or like gun behind his back. So he starts getting pulled in. Everybody else's treasure starts getting pulled in. Even Scopper's axes start getting pulled in. And we get a little fun panel of just like Captain John basically just amassing all of the treasure that, well, at least a good amount of the treasure that these pirates have been working to obtain. It's interesting to just like think that, Buggy, he's going after Captain John's treasure. And we get a line after this page, but like we got a line saying that like a lot of these treasure chests, they're worth at least 1 billion. So it kind of makes sense that Buggy would be going after John's treasure, assuming John had like collected this like whole array of treasure that all these other pirates had gotten from God Valley. But Captain John, he didn't get to have all the fun. We also see Gonzui jump into action, and it turns out Gonzui also has an old devil fruit that we've seen before. It looks like he has Mr. Five's devil fruit, the like turn anything into a bomb, because we see him, flick what I could only assume is just like his booger or something. And we see it causes like a massive explosion that takes out John. It is funny to see that, I don't think Mr. Five ever gave any named attacks, or at least nothing that was super impressive. But Gonzui goes with Sky Snake Red Cannon, which I mean that's a pretty fire name for an attack. That considering that it's just like you flicking your booger. But yeah, once John gets attacked, Shiki notices and he's just like, "Bro, what are you doing?" And Gonzu is just like, I mean, John's not about to split his share, and each of these, like I said, are worth at least 1 billion. And Shiki's just like, "Shit, boy," and he starts going after it himself. To which Gonzui also is just like, "Yeah, I probably should have expected that," and starts to launch his boogers at Shiki. Cut back to Garp. We see Garp just rationalizing, like, you know what? I'm gonna go beat the shit out of that thing over there. Everybody else is like trying to hold him back. It's like, dude, that's one of the fucking like Gorosei. And it's like, I don't know. It just looks like a giant insect thing to me. A lot of people have pointed out that Garp right here, he's doing the Nika pose, but like I feel like it's a tiny bit of a stretch because I feel like I've seen other characters just do this exact same pose, especially when they're running. Like it would make more sense if Garp was doing this Nika pose, like when if he was like celebrating or if he was like trying to pose for a second. But this just seems like him running. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that is just actually a reference to like the Nika pose. But then again, considering what Garp's actions are right now, just straight up defying the celestial dragons and just getting ready to just sock Emo in the face, I could see like I could appreciate like a little bit of a Nika like symbolism right there, but I still think it's a tiny bit of a stretch. Then we start to cut back more into the Rocks and Emu clash, and we see Whitebeard and Kaido. They were all ready to support him, just like from the last chapter, and they're getting ready to jump in, but Big Mom still obviously pissed that Kaido stole the devil fruit. She comes charging in, ready to launch an attack at Kaido. And Kaido drops a fucking hilarious line. He's like, "Bro," he's like, "You jealous? Check this out." Which, like, come on, leading up to God Valley, he was still an annoying shit. Like, just constantly pining after a devil fruit. But hey, now that he's got his devil fruit, I'll give him that he can be the annoying little shit right now, especially in the face of Emu. But that aside, we see, the top tiers winding up for an attack. We see Garp charging up his Galaxy Impact, and dog, this next panel, I was gonna say like maybe panel of the year, but like we've also gotten the Harley panel this year, so I feel like it's kind of neck and neck with this run right now because we have all of the top fighters in the series launching a combo attack against essentially the final boss of the series. Maybe not the series, but at least of the world. It's just insane to see. We see the Divine Departure. We see the Galaxy Impact. We see Rox's attack, Pandemonium of the Abyss, or Curse of the Abyss, which, I mean, that's just a fire name. Shattering Void from Whitebeard, which I don't know if that might be his first, like, named attack. Ikoku Sovereignty, which Big Mom was launching at Kaido, but Kaido just dodged. And then Kaido, he hasn't even had like 3 minutes with his devil fruit so far, so he doesn't have any name for his attack, so he just goes dragon something dragon. Yeah, I reread this chapter a couple times and I just kept going back to this panel because god damn. And it's also the first double spread panel that we've seen since the Gorosei transformation panel back in Egghead. So like, yeah, it's just amazing to see, man. Unfortunately, though, it does jack shit to Emo, which like, what the fuck is Emo, man? Like, how? I can only imagine at this point, like the actual way to defeat Emo is just straight up like Luffy's Devil Fruit. If the combined like advanced Conqueror's Haki of all the top fighters of that era does jack shit to Emu, then it can't be like a pure strength thing. It can't be a pure hockey thing. It can't be a pure devil fruit. Well, actually, it could be a pure devil fruit thing. Thinking just back to Luffy's power. But yeah, we see like Emo just unfazed, and then we see a kind of a cool panel of him just unleashing just insane amounts of like Conqueror's Hagi that knocks out pretty much every like regular guy on the island, both Marines and pirates alike. It's funny enough, like we get a little panel of the Roger pirates like They have no idea what the fuck is going on. And Rayleigh, he's already got Shocky in hand, is on the run. But Rayleigh, thinking like a true pirate, he's like, hey, in the midst of all this chaos, grab whatever treasure you can. And like, I thought that was just kind of funny. Like, his priorities never waver, you know? And then we finally see how Shanks ended up in that treasure chest. So I'll give it to Dragon that it was very much intentional for him to save Shanks's life, and it's still very much like due to the actions of Dragon that Shanks is alive. But it is funny that Shanks basically pulled a substitution jutsu and basically fated his own way into that treasure chest. So it kind of also it doesn't necessarily debunk the theory that Dragon got his devil fruit from God Valley, but I think it at least debunks the theory that he got it like from whatever specific treasure chest Shanks was hidden in. Then again, we'll see. We still have, I'm assuming, a good amount of this flashback to go, considering what's happening next. Which, Emu is able to sense Eris and Teach like making their escape through the forest. Decide, you know what, I'm about to really turn the tables here. But like before that, we get a little like a couple of cute like interactions between both Kaido and Big Mom. Just being like little shitty younger brother, older sister. Just be like, yeah, it's too late to throw it up. And then Big Mom just like, fuck it, that you better pay me for it then. Like, I need some compensation for getting you the fucking fruit that I was gonna get for myself. And then we also got a little bit of a cute interaction between Garp and Roger. It was more of like a rivalry attack. That kind of reminds me actually of how like Zoro and Zanji kind of look at each other. Like Garp just like, yeah, my attack is what did it, and Garp's just like, nah, it was me. And it reminds me a lot of just Zoro and Sanji's relationship. Imu puts together that woman and child running in the forest is also related to the Davy clan, and they also need to be wiped out. And then we get to just the most heartbreaking part of the chapter. I think a lot of us thought like it was gonna end up like this, but we see, Rox try his best to take out Emu, still not doing anything, which is just insane. And then we see Rox get stabbed by Emu and get Dami reverse-eyed. Damn, dude. It's gonna be really tough to see both like I guess how all of these fighters are about to deal with just Dami reverse-eyed Rox, but like you see the relationships between like Kaido and Whitebeard and Rox. We're gonna see how that just immediately deteriorates because I'm gonna assume that they're going to do the thing where like Rox transforms. We as the reader knows that his personality is a little bit off now, but the rest of them just think, oh no, this is just Rox just like on a normal day or some shit. And they're just gonna think, oh man, Rox, you really just turned the tables here. You're now a government dog. What the hell? But it's both a shame and like kind of like eye opening to see like the extent, I guess, of which Sengoku had watered down the tales of God Valley, because we originally thought Garp and Roger teamed up together to defeat Rox and the rest of the Rox pirates. But now I think we're about to see is all of our top fighters here, minus Rox, against Rox. I don't see Kaido, Big Mom, and Whitebeard necessarily teaming up with Garp or Roger for any other reason than to take out like their captain. And I also don't see either of them just straight up. Well, actually, I could see Big Mom maybe like hightailing it and just be like, okay, no, this is a lost cause. And I also don't have my fucking devil fruit. So what do I need to be here for? But I could still see like Kaido and Whitebeard sticking around and obviously, feeling that betrayal of like Rox turning against them. Even though, they've always had a shaky relationship with Rox anyway, but it's gonna be heartbreaking to see them like actually have to fight each other, especially given how a lot of their respect for each other comes off of just pure strength. Yeah, this is just a fucking crazy chapter, man. But it really also just makes me like think like why hasn't Emu been doing this? Like there has to be some sort of limit to his power. Like if he can straight up Dami reverse eye people without being there, which we kind of saw with Rox's parents, he could Dami reverse eye people without necessarily just like touching them, which we've seen with Dory, Brogy, and the rest of the giants currently, because there's this is still Loki's flashback that's with it. That's also Harald's flashback. That's now just Rock's flashback. But yeah, back in like what's happening in the real world, the One Piece real world. Uh yeah, we still have like Dami reverse side giants that Emu didn't ever actually have to physically touch to Dami reverse side them. So I'm wondering, like, it might just be like a pure strength thing that Emu had to get close enough to Rocks to be able to stab him, quote unquote. I say quote unquote because it apparently doesn't even hurt Rocks, and actually has to make physical contact with him in order to be able to Dami reverse him. It just makes me wonder, like, why hasn't Emu been doing this? Like, if he can just Dami reverse what is probably arguably the strongest fighter of that time between Rocks, Garp, and Roger, why haven't you tried to do this to Roger before? Why haven't you tried to do this to Garp before? Why aren't you trying to do this to freaking Akainu right now? There has to be some sort of limit to Emu's power, or has to be some sort of trigger that allows the Dami reverse side to like work. And so, like, I've seen like some comparisons just be between like Rocks and Brogy, saying that like, oh, they need to be like basically in a stressed state of mind, or like be actively caring for something else. So like, we have Rocks with his family, and we have Dory Brogan and them with, the children that are being currently taken hostage, as well as Tree that's being set on fire right now. And they have also just the added stress of like whatever happening with Loki right now. I don't I that could be like a trigger, but I have a feeling it's not that simple. But at the same time, what else would like have gotten Rox to get Dami reverse side? Because it's not like this is the first time Rox has seen Emu. Like, he pulled up to his room once before, and apparently nothing was wrong then. So yeah, I'd like 15 out of 10 chapter. That that one panel of just all of them unleashing their final attacks, like that, we're gonna be feeding off of that for a while. Because god damn, like, honestly, I might get that like framed or something, because it's so powerful, man. Yeah, let's take a look at some tweets that I found I like enjoyable or eye opening. This one I thought was kind of hilarious. That Rox is using his sword right now, his quote unquote swordsmanship, but he did pull up to Emu's room with his gun. This is it's the classic Breaking Bad meme, but like, I don't know, maybe there was something to that gun that like clearly Emu wasn't attacking you while you had that gun, so maybe that's what you need to do. But yeah, no, I just thought that was pretty interesting point out. And then, this also made an incredible point that just like Garp is more or less like, I think I made this point before, but like Garp is more or less like the Gojo of this universe, where like he is the force that's like holding like the Marines together, kind of in terms of like pure strength. Without Garp, Marines are just severely, severely weakened. And like Saturn and Emu, they both realize like, yeah, we can't afford to lose Garp. He's just way too invaluable. So we can't kill him, because literally he is just him. And like, it makes sense. Like, Garp pulled up with just his fist. Everybody else has a fucking weapon or a devil fruit ready to go. Garp, pure hands. And then this I also thought was kind of hilarious, because yeah, after God Valley, like, Emu knows about Garp, and Garp in a sense knows about Emu, but like, there Emu's probably not going to do anything at the moment, because like he just can't afford to lose Garp. But he's never going to let somebody with the D name know that. But I do think it's funny that like, if they ever were to encounter each other, they can't really do anything against each other. Although Garp could probably still walk up to him and just be like, "Hey, I kind of feel like punching the shit out of you again. I'm gonna do it." That just goes to show even more and more like how much more of like how much more respectable Garp is than Sakazuki right now, because Akainu, he is just taking the shit from the world nobles right now, and from the celestial and from the Gorosei right now, and by extension from Emu. And he has yet to like show any like physical like sort of like threat or restraint against them. So I'm curious to see, like, at some point, I have to imagine Akainu is gonna snap, and maybe he's gonna try to rebel. And I don't know. There's a chance. What if Akainu were to get Dami reverse side? Like the whole fact that like Rocks can get Dami reverse side now, it just kind of opens up the fact that like I have a feeling that one of the 12 like final contenders of the One Piece, be it Garling. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it could very well be Garling, being Shamrock, be it fucking Kobe, maybe. Like Emu's gonna Dami reverse eye one of those 12 for sure, and it's gonna be fucking crazy to see. But yeah, I can't wait for this next chapter. Uh, yeah, feel free to check out some of the other reactions that I've done on my channel. You know, I'm reacting to the One Piece anime. I'm also reacting to Jujutsu Kaisen right now, as well as the show Black Sails, which also about pirates. But yeah, until next time.